seems Gypsy Blanchard has sparked a fresh wave of intrigue with her memoir, Behind My Time to Stand, as she subtly admits the book may not be entirely reliable. According to a keen observation by Katie Dre on Instagram, Gypsy appears to be walking back on the credibility of her work, stating that some of the events described might not be entirely accurate. This revelation, tucked away in the author's note at the beginning of the book, has left readers questioning how much of Gypsy's story is rooted in fact, and how much is shaped by her perspective. In her author's note, Gypsy makes it clear that her book is a work of memory rather than a definitive recounting of events. She writes, "Everyone considers my story to be true crime, but this book is a work of memory, my memory, and therefore is a memoir, not an outsider's investigation of my life or crime. The feelings and emotions evoked are accurate, but some of my childhood memories have faded. To fill in gaps, I've relied on others' answers to my questions." This disclaimer also mentions that names and details have been altered for privacy, and passages with dialogue use quotation marks only when Gypsy is reasonably sure the words are close to verbatim or the speaker's actual meaning is reflected. This acknowledgement alone introduces a layer of ambiguity, suggesting that some of the dialogue may be paraphrased or interpreted through Gypsy's lens, rather than directly quoted. Today, Gypsy is the model for expressing empathy and deal with painfully. While changing names for privacy might be understandable, the admission that dialogue may not be precise raises concerns about the book's overall reliability. Readers now wonder how much of what Gypsy recounts actually happened as described versus what she interpreted or believed to have occurred. Conversations in particular can be tricky. What one person says can often be perceived differently by another, influenced by personal bias or emotions. One of the most debated aspects of Gypsy's disclaimer is her statement that, "The story I share here is true to my memory, and these memories have shaped my perceptions." This leaves room for subjective interpretations of events, which could lead to misrepresentations or inaccuracies. For example, dialogue in the book may not reflect the exact words spoken, but rather Gypsy's understanding of what the speaker meant or intended to convey. This raises a critical question. How reliable is a narrative when it's filtered through personal memory, especially one influenced by trauma and a tumultuous past? Misinterpretations can occur, and as readers have pointed out, this creates a risk of misrepresenting others or altering key details of the story. Interestingly, even AI weighed in on the issue, highlighting the challenges of an unreliable narrator. Gypsy's admission that she paraphrased conversations undermines the credibility of her narrative and introduces the possibility of misinterpretations or even fabrications. While some may argue this is a natural limitation of memoirs, others find it troubling, given the gravity and public interest in Gypsy's story. This revelation has undoubtedly added another layer of complexity to Gypsy's memoir, leaving readers to wonder just how much of her story is fact and how much is filtered through her perceptions. As debates continue, one thing is certain: Gypsy's tale remains as controversial and compelling as ever. Gypsy Blanchard's memoir continues to raise eyebrows, especially as readers grapple with the blurred lines between fact and fiction. Gypsy's approach to reconstructing her story, particularly her decision to paraphrase or interpret conversations, has created a cloud of uncertainty over her narrative. If dialogue, arguably one of the most critical elements of a memoir, can't be trusted as accurate, how can readers rely on the rest of her account? This ambiguity undermines the integrity of her story, casting doubt on its authenticity. The narrative itself, heavily built on Gypsy's personal recollections and interpretations, starts to resemble a precarious house of cards. With Gypsy openly admitting that her memories may not always be entirely accurate, the foundation of her memoir feels shaky. Readers are left wondering if the events she describes reflect reality or her perception of it, a crucial distinction, especially when dealing with a story of such gravity. This uncertainty leaves readers in a dilemma. How much of Gypsy's tale can they take at face value? Is she a reliable narrator, or is her perspective skewed by her own biases and experiences? The memoir's disclaimers only deepen these questions, making it harder for anyone to discern where the truth ends and creative liberties begin. One of the most striking examples of this blurred line comes early in the book, during one of Gypsy's most shocking revelations, her claim that her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, wanted to cut her throat. In recounting this pivotal moment, Gypsy provides multiple interpretations that seem to shift depending on her perspective. In one passage, she writes, "1 month before the murder, my mother tried to cut my throat. Or at least that's how I saw it." Later, she recounts a doctor's suggestion for a simple operation on her voice box, which Gypsy interpreted as, "Let's cut Gypsy's throat for no reason at all." These examples show that Gypsy frames the events not as they happened, but as she perceived them, often with a lens of suspicion and mistrust. Readers have pointed out that this tendency to reinterpret moments may have been a way for Gypsy to justify her eventual actions against her mother. By focusing on what she believed to be Dee Dee's malice, Gypsy seems to have built a narrative where she was the victim of relentless cruelty, even if some of those beliefs were rooted more in perception than fact. Online reactions have been mixed, with some readers outright skeptical of Gypsy's approach. One commenter asked, "Who writes a memoir that only contains what they believe happened? Either you know or you don't. There's no guessing when you're writing about past experiences." Another noted, "I've read multiple memoirs and I've never seen a disclaimer like this. It makes you wonder how much of the story is real." Others brought up the weight of memory in recounting traumatic events. A foster care survivor shared their own experiences, explaining how vivid and detailed their memories of abuse were, with no need for embellishment. "The truth never changes," they wrote. "It saddens me that Gypsy is getting away with this when so many people who are genuinely abused don't have the platform she does." The heart of the controversy lies in Gypsy's reliance on secondhand information and her admission that parts of her memory are fragmented. While some may see this as an honest acknowledgement of the limitations of personal storytelling, others view it as a dangerous precedent, especially for a story that has already garnered so much public attention. Gypsy's memoir is undoubtedly a complex and controversial piece of work. For those following her story, it's yet another layer of drama in a narrative that continues to captivate and divide audiences. The question remains, how much of Gypsy's story is grounded in truth, and how much is shaped by her interpretation of events? The answers, it seems, are as elusive as the memories she recounts. The chatter surrounding Gypsy-Rose Blanchard's memoir only intensifies as critics and commentators delve deeper into her narrative, questioning not just its accuracy but also her motives behind sharing it. Some are now pointing out what they perceive as glaring inconsistencies in Gypsy's portrayal of her childhood and her claims of abuse, painting a picture of someone who might have been more complicit in her circumstances than she lets on. One particularly biting observation came from a reader who claimed, "There are parts of my story I still can't physically talk about. My mouth just sticks, and the words won't come out." Meanwhile, Gypsy's over here being glorified as a victim while using unproven accusations as an excuse for what she did. The commenter drew attention to photos and videos from Gypsy's childhood that show her appearing carefree and joyful during public outings. "She looks absolutely gleeful. I don't think I know a single survivor who smiles like that. You can always see the sadness in their eyes." This sentiment has been echoed by others who believe that Gypsy may have been more aware of and complicit in her mother's scams than she admits. The narrative suggests that she enjoyed the perks of being portrayed as a sick, disabled child, at least until the ruse began to unravel as she grew older. According to critics, Gypsy may have started to feel the walls closing in as her mother's control tightened, and her usefulness as the disabled child began to wane. "She knew the gravy train was coming to an end," one skeptic remarked, implying that this realization may have been a catalyst for the events that followed. 11 people died. These observations add another layer to the already complex story of Gypsy-Rose, raising questions about her role in perpetuating the deception her mother orchestrated. Was she entirely a victim, or did she play along for personal gain until it no longer served her? For some, the answers lie in her actions, demeanor, and now, the inconsistencies in her memoir. For others, it's a reminder of the complicated dynamics that often define cases of long-term manipulation and abuse. As the public continues to dissect Gypsy's story, one thing is clear. Her memoir is not just a recounting of past events, but a lightning rod for debates about truth, perception, and accountability. Whether her intentions were genuine or calculated, the narrative she has woven keeps her story firmly in the spotlight, where it has remained for years and, likely, will continue to be. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive into Gypsy-Rose Blanchard's controversial memoir and the growing debate surrounding her story. Whether you believe her narrative, question its authenticity, or find yourself somewhere in between, there's no denying the complexity of her tale and the emotions it stirs. What are your thoughts? Is Gypsy's memoir a genuine reflection of her experiences, or does it leave too much room for doubt? Drop your opinions in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest twists, turns, and dramas in the world of true crime and beyond. See you in the next one.